All right, Case, let's go to you first. And we're not going to be surprised at all with your potential suitor for Timo Meier that has been heavily out there in the rumor mill and such for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm pretty much contractually obliged to mention the Devils here. I was gonna wear my San Jose jersey on top of my Devils jersey, and take the San Jose. It was gonna be a whole spectacle, but of course, as you can imagine, they're in boxes right now, so not doing that. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about Timo Meier and the New Jersey Devils. That's obviously been the rumor. I'm trying not to get my hopes up because Matthew Tkachuk and Johnny Gaudreau were rumored to the Devils at one point. Johnny Gaudreau, I pretty much was slotting him into my my lineup at one point, and that didn't happen. But this one, I'm feeling a little more comfortable in. So why the trade and sign makes sense is that this is the missing piece for the Devils. The thing the Devils lack up front is size and physicality. Their forwards are mostly undersized in the top six, and Tom Fitzgerald has been vocal that a top six forward is his target. He said, I'm looking for a top six forward on the younger side with team control, and that he'd be willing to give up significant pieces. Well, that is exactly Timo Meier. Another thing is the Devils' power play is kind of their weakest point like currently, and he is a power play beast, similar to an Alex Ovechkin, where he just kind of sets up in his spot and just wires them home. So those, the fit makes perfect sense, but now the connections, Harp, don't have an accident in your pants here, buddy. The connections, first of all, the obvious one, everyone talks about it, the Swiss connection. Hischier, Siegenthaler, both locked up long term, so that's going to be a nice fit there. Tom Fitzgerald's brother, Scott, is the director of player personnel at San Jose. Greer, the GM of San Jose, was on the Devils coaching staff not long ago. 2019-2020 was his last season there. And finally, Claude Lemieux is Timo's agent, who Devils legend, and is also the agent for Fabian Zetterlund on the Devils. So connection galore here.
I love it.
Absolutely love it. So now into the trade. I have two scenarios, two different trade types, depending on what they want as the big piece in this. The first one being Alex Holtz, Miles Wood, Seamus Casey, a 2023 first round, and a 2024 fourth round for Timo Meier with salary retained probably 50% and some AHLer for the contract spot. So that's the first scenario I have here. And in both scenarios, Timo Meier signs immediately $9 million for 8 years. Similar but better than the Bo Horvat contract.
Okay, that's a lot.
So if we want to talk about that one first, I can get into the second one after.
Yeah, how about we do that? So this first deal then, Case, sending Timo Meier to the Devils is centered around Alex Holtz, correct? That's the main piece that you think is enticing San Jose into this deal?
I think obviously a first round pick is a main piece, but I think that there's going to be one blue chip prospect here, and Alex Holtz makes a ton of sense. Timo Meier's kind of what you want Alex Holtz to be in the future. That's kind of what his potential is, we'd hope. So it makes sense for the Devils to do the swap here because Timo Meier is the guy now and Holtz is the guy in the future. Makes sense for the rebuilding San Jose Sharks as well. He's a 7th overall pick. He has tons of upside. And honestly, I'm just having a hard time seeing him get into the Devils lineup consistently enough to start producing. So that'd be another good thing for San Jose. They can slide him in there with his buddy Eklund as well, and let's see what those two snipers could do.
Yeah, well, initial thoughts. I like the trade. Obviously, Timo Meier is the perfect fit for any contender, really, but especially the Devils, who need that sort of offense up front to complement some of their other guys who can score, but they also need that physicality above all. So Timo Meier obviously fits that mold. He shoots a shit ton more than almost anybody else in the entire league. He hits a lot, and he's just a great player all around. So the fit I don't think we have to talk about that again. It's just perfect for any contender, but especially the Devils. In terms of the return, I don't mind it for New Jersey. I think if they can get a deal done for Timo Meier and get him signed without giving up one of Luke Hughes or Simon Nemec, then it's an absolute win.
I honestly think that there's 3 players that are almost untouchable and will be asked about from San Jose, and that's Nemec, Luke Hughes, and Dawson Mercer has really fallen into the category of untouchable for me. I'll really be hurt if he's gone for sure, but I think those 3 guys are out of the question, and the Devils would rather pile prospects in than give up any of those 3, because the Devils are like the ranked 3rd best pipeline in the league. They've got tons of guys in the system and a logjam at forward and defense. So it makes a lot of sense to give up more pieces than big pieces.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I like the return. I think it would be a relatively fair deal. Harper, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think no surprise that everybody seems to think that New Jersey is the likeliest destination for Timo Meier at this point, and the fit is perfect. So, like you said, Chad, we don't need to get into that any further. But I like this return for both teams, for the Devils and for the San Jose Sharks. Holtz coming in, he can join Eklund and the other prospect, Bysted, that I talked about ahead of the World Juniors. They're all Swedes. They clearly like their 2 Swedish prospects. And you add another guy who is very talented and, like you said, Case, unfortunately can't get into the Devils lineup full time because there's simply just a logjam. So he'd be really good there. He would really excel. And Mike Greer clearly wants more picks and more prospects. So that's perfect. Seamus Casey, again, I think you could go either way. Maybe the return would be a little bit less if you went with Muka Madulin, who's also a first rounder instead of Seamus Casey. But, he was a second round pick and a very good defenseman. And then Miles Wood sheds a bit of salary off the books and goes back the other way, and then the first and potentially the fourth in 2024 as well. So I like the assets going each way for both teams, and again, just the fit with the size and the scoring ability and the Swiss connection as well. It's a match made in heaven for the New Jersey Devils. But really good trade built here by UCase, this first one, and I like the return for San Jose. If I'm in Mike Greer's shoes, I'd be happy about this for sure.
Yeah, and I think Miles Wood makes sense. It's not just a cap dump, but he's really struggling with New Jersey at the moment. He's playing 4th line constantly. The other night he played 4.5 minutes, I think it was. So it would make a lot of sense for a change of scenery for Miles Wood, and I think that you could slot in pretty highly with San Jose and kind of add a different, really replace that game style of Timo Meier, banging bodies, but also putting the puck in the net occasionally for Miles Wood and more so for Timo Meier. Now, the second trade I could talk about real quick here. Harp mentioned it already, but the big piece I think would be Shakira Mukhamadullin. He's, again, having a really great season in the KHL. He was a first-round pick for the Devils. There's been so much discussion on what this guy can be, but that's really yet to be seen. But the big piece here is not only that he's a young, talented defenseman with lots of upside, but he is also already signed to an NHL contract, removing that confusion, or not confusion, but the variability of a KHL player. So that's big for him. The next pieces would be Graham Clark and the 2023 first round pick, 2024 third round pick, upgrading from the 4th in the previous trade, and Andreas Johnson as the cap dump and contract flip. And then the same return for the Devils, Timo Meier, 50% retained and a AHL contract. So yeah, you're basically flipping your big prospect in the trade to being a defenseman instead here. And then I think the secondary pieces are better than in the first. So it kind of equals out in the end. Graham Clark's having himself an amazing season in the AHL right now. 18 goals, 21 assists in 49 games currently. He's only 21 years old and has been playing in the AHL for almost 3 years because of the pandemic. So that's some huge experience for him. And he's got a lot of upside as well. He's a 3rd-round pick, scored a lot of goals for the Ottawa 67s. And I think he's another guy that's going to get lost in the logjam in New Jersey. So it makes sense to give him a new home. And then, Andreas Johnsson, he has a no trade clause, but I think it would be stupid to not waive that to get a chance with a team that could play him.
Yeah, very true. This one, personally, Case, I don't like as much if I'm the San Jose Sharks, because I think the return on the first one, just because you included Alexander Holtz as the key piece, I think makes more sense for not only you're getting a better player, but you're getting a better fit, I think, for San Jose. You talked about the Swedish connection of their young players, Harp, so I think the first one just makes more sense for that reason. Also, if I'm the Devils, even though internally they value Shakir Mukhamadullin pretty highly, I just don't know how much value he has around the league not being a top 10 pick, like compared to a guy like Alex Holtz, who everyone coming into the draft knew his name, watched him light up the World Juniors, and has seen him develop. I just think a guy like Shakir Mukhamadullin might not have the upper limit that a guy like Holtz does when it comes to production. I know Mukhamadulin's a defenseman, but I'm saying I think there's a difference there in the high-end potential between the two prospects. So if it were me and I'm representing San Jose, I definitely want to get the first package rather than the second. Also, too, because it included a guy like Seamus Casey, who I was really high on in this most recent draft, and I think around the league, whether it's fair or not, might have even similar value to a player like Mukhamadullin. So yeah, I would prefer the first package. I think the assets are there for the second one. It's just not as sexy to me if I'm San Jose.
The one thing I thought about with this second scenario is actually adding one more piece on New Jersey's side, and that being one of the more ready now defensemen in whether that's Kevin Ball, Nikita Okhoichuk, or Riley Walsh. I think that makes sense for San Jose. Not a lot in the pipeline on the back end. So adding 2 prospects on defense, one more ready now, would be nice for them. And then this trade for me starts to sound like Taylor Hall to the Arizona Coyotes, where they didn't necessarily get the big pieces in that trade, but it was an abundance of players coming back. There was 3 young AHL players with potential. One of them has turned out, so it didn't really work for the Devils, but they did get a first and a third. The first was Dawson Mercer, and the third was Jonas Siegenthaler. They traded that pick for him. So this second scenario, if you add in a Riley Walsh, Koichuk, or Ball, that starts to sound like the Taylor Hall trade to me, and that makes a lot of sense with comparables. Taylor Hall, that was the season after he won the MVP, so there's a lot of value there.
Yeah, true. And there's something to be said about this trade too. Like, just thinking about what San Jose really wants, like thinking about where their timeline is right now, because at this point, I don't really think we know until maybe after the trade deadline or maybe after this summer, when they've kind of picked a direction and gone with it. We know they have a bunch of young, good players, but they still have some pretty tough contracts on that team. Like Erik Karlsson is likely not going to be moved at the deadline. And Marc-Edouard Vlasic is another tough contract. Like, who knows when they'll be able to compete. I could also see San Jose wanting to go the route of 2 first-round picks in a return and sort of spreading them out so they get twice the opportunity at a good player in the future if they think they're a bit further along than maybe some other teams do.
If that means we don't have to give Alex Holtz, you can have 2 first-round picks. You can have 40.
Yeah, there you go. And Chad, sorry to jump all over you there before you were talking, but I will say I agree with you that the first package I liked a lot more, but I will say with the second package and Mukhamadullin, being kind of the big name going back to San Jose, the Sharks are pretty thin when it comes to defensemen in the pipeline. So I know we've got Seamus Casey in the first one, but in the second package, I like the idea of having, a couple of defensemen in there, Mook Madulin and maybe Riley Walsh or Koychuk or someone added in there as well, because I can't think of any defensive prospects that they've got in the pipeline, whereas the other one would add to an already strong, prospect forward group that they've got developing there. So that's what I think when I think of the second package there. But honestly, both pretty solid case. And again, I mean, this fit Meier with the Devils just makes so much sense. And I like the connections that you had there too.